Us all of this is Hélène Conway-Mouret, the Vice President of the French Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much, Ms. Conway-Mouret. Where do you see this ending? Again, it seems that every day it's either a de-escalation slightly, but then with the re-escalation. What do you think happens in the next 2 weeks?
Well, it's extremely difficult to foresee anything, as the previous speaker just rightly pointed out. You know, we have very contradictory statements being made sometimes in the same day. So, but with no very clear objective as to how the war started and what the objectives to be achieved are, it's difficult to see how it can be ended. Of course, the United States doesn't want to lose face, and neither does Iran. And Iran, I think, was totally underestimated as to its strengths and what it could do with the regime that has been in place for too long, too many people involved, too much to lose, and therefore that they will not give up in spite of the almighty military power being displayed in front of them.
How do you look, I mean, what are the signs that you're looking for to see whether there's a real de-escalation? You know, we understand that there's this 15-point proposal drafted by the U.S. Would Iran say openly that they're looking at it or interested, or are there other signs in terms of tactical military ones, if, for example, the missiles are fewer or less aggressive?
Yes, and this is very good news indeed that negotiations have started. And but you know, there is another player in this war, and it is Israel, which has been waiting for decades to strike Iran, which is a country which is, you know, putting into question the very existence of Israel, and through the Hezbollah, through Hamas, through the Houthis, has been striking Israel repeatedly. And Israel now, I don't think, wants to give up until Iran is showing sign of weaknesses, and which is not the case at the moment. So while the efforts are being made by the United States, I do not see how Israel will actually give up halfway through the mission that they have, because if the US doesn't have a clear objective in this war, Israel does. So under that pressure, while the negotiations are going on, I think that there will still be a lot of bombing and a lot of destructions on the Iranian territory by Israel and by the US to achieve Israel's objectives.
Do you think France and Europe will eventually really be drawn into this conflict because of the price of oil and the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, it is not our war, and as you know, we are extremely involved in supporting Ukraine, which is under a lot of pressure from Russia. Now that the sanctions have been lifted on Russian oil, it's making life much more difficult for all of us, as the oil is actually financing the war efforts by Russia against Ukraine. So the role we can play is by not being involved in this war is to actually, both on the diplomatic end, to support the United States in the negotiations, and also to reopen, which is really absolutely crucial for the world economy, the Strait of Hormuz. And, you know, just remember that France was the only country for a very long time to actually patrol the Red Sea and be tolerated, because we never got involved in the war in Yemen, by the Houthis. So we actually intercepted their missiles, but we were the only country that was able to be present in that region to actually support and intercept anything that may have hit the ships going through. So that's where our role will be, to enter a coalition to help reopen this. But, you know, things will have to quieten down before we do it, because we do not get involved in this war, and we won't.